and welcome to Influence, a show all about the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences. I'm your host, Jessica Graves. I'm excited to have a couple of guests from the Department of Biochemistry, Molecular Biology, Entomology, and Plant Pathology. It's a mouthful, but we have a lot of amazing people there. So our first guest today is Dr. Joe Von Hill. Dr. Hill, welcome to the show.
Thank you.
You're no stranger around here, but why don't you tell the audience a little bit about who you are, where you're from, maybe what brought you to Mississippi State?
Yeah, so I'm originally from Meridian, Mississippi, so native Mississippian, and I came to Starkville, 1999, I believe, and never left.
All right.
Got all of my degrees here. Started off with an interdisciplinary science degree with wildlife, forestry, and biology as my undergrad. And then I was finishing that up and working on a directed individual study with Jeannie Jones in the wildlife department at the time, looking at insects in our native prairies. And I was going over to the Mississippi Entomological Museum to identify some of the specimens I was collecting. And one day the director there, Dr. Richard Brown, said, "Hey, you want to go to graduate school?" And I didn't have anything else going on after graduation yet. Yeah. And so I said, "Sure."
Yeah.
And started graduate school there in the department, in the museum, got my master's degree, and then rolled into a full-time position afterwards doing that. And while as an employee in the museum, part of your benefits is to get you get free classes, so I got my PhD while I was working. And then with a tremendous amount of luck, I became the director, and now an assistant professor in the department as well. Yeah. And I'm very proud to, as a native Mississippian, to be able to be director of our insect museum.
Absolutely.
And it's part of my drive to make it as best as it can be.
Absolutely.
And as a native Mississippian, it's like playing for the hometown team, basically.
And we were just talking off camera about the amount of tours and things. You guys are really active in hosting school groups of various ages and maybe other groups to come and see the museum and really see the collection that we have. So you are really considered an insect taxonomist,
right?
Yes. Why don't you give the viewers a little bit of an idea? Admittedly, I'm not a bug person either, but why don't you tell our viewers a little bit about what that is, and then we'll talk about some of your research.
Okay. So a taxonomist is someone who basically can identify, name, describe species, and usually connected with that is the systematist who figures out how they're related. So most people are taxonomists and systematists together. So we figure out how different insects are related, kind of delineate species, things like that.
Yeah. And we were talking earlier about some of your role in the teaching side of things is to teach intro to insects. And so I imagine you have a lot of students who really, that's probably a powerful learning opportunity for students who may not have grown up just being a bug lover, but they learn a lot along the way. Yeah. So I appreciate you contributing to the education of our students in that way. So your research, you have a lot of different research that you have been involved with over the years, but can you talk a little bit about what kind of research programs you have going on right now, and maybe specifically tie that into how it relates to agricultural systems specifically?
Okay, yeah, so we do a lot in the museum. I think at present we have about 32 funded projects, so it keeps us very busy. In terms of research, so the museum, as I've kind of directed it now we kind of have three prongs. So we have the museum, which is the collection, the research collections. We have our field and research team that goes out and does field surveys. So for that, we do a lot of work for the Fish and Wildlife Service, different organizations that need to know what occurs on the lands they manage.
Yeah, sure.
So we're out looking for endangered species or just compiling lists of species, doing inventories. Usually the Fish and Wildlife Service or state agencies, state conservation agencies are our biggest funders there. Okay. But also we have a screening center where the USDA and different state bureaus of plant industries, 12 states across the East, send samples to us to basically look for invasive species or particular crop pest. And so we get about 20,000 samples a year, and they pass through, you know, we hire a ton of students that go through and sort those samples, and then they pass through a few highly trained screeners looking for those target specimens. And if we identify them, we let, you know, the USDA or the different states know, and then they go out and try to eradicate that or figure out, you know, where these pests are. And in turn, we handle all the trapping for Mississippi. So we're out doing surveys for solanaceous pests, tomatoes, peppers, things like that, small grains, wheat, sorghum. So we go out and do all the surveys for those. Even sweet potato weevils, we've been doing a survey for those this year. So, you know, as taxonomists, we're the people that can identify things. So it works really well that we're the ones out doing the surveys.
Yeah, and I appreciate that you've spoken specifically about kind of that application piece. We are getting really short on time now, but I appreciate you spending some time with us this morning to talk about what your role is, give the viewers some insight into what your job exactly is, and then also shed some light on the Bug Museum and what all that has to offer.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, up next, we're going to visit with another professor in this department and talk a little bit more about bug physiology. Stay tuned.
Think you know ag? Think again.
We are creative.
We protect the environment.
We prepare for careers in medicine and conduct research.
We empower people and communities.
We are technology driven.
And we feed and clothe the world. We are the College of Agriculture and Life Sciences at Mississippi State University.
Welcome back to Influence. Up next, we have Dr. Krishnan from, again, the Department of Biochemistry, Molecular Biology, Entomology, and Plant Pathology. Yep. We made it.
Yes, we did.
All right, Dr. Krishnan, why don't you introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about who you are, and then we'll dig into some topics.
So I describe myself as somebody who took the long road. I did my master's and PhD from India, and then I moved to Europe. I worked at Plant Research International in Wageningen in the Netherlands. And then I was picked up by a famous insect physiologist, Professor František Sehnal, who worked at the Czech Academy of Sciences. So he took me to Czech Academy of Sciences and asked me to work with him. I worked with him for some time. And in 2007, I was picked up by another professor from Oregon State University and brought to Oregon State. And from there, I moved here in 2011. And since 2011, I have been working at the Department of Biochemistry, Molecular Biology, and Entomology.
We are glad that you made some trades along the way and landed here at Mississippi State. So your official role is an insect physiologist.
That's right.
And you do quite a bit of work both on the agricultural application side of things and also biomedical. So can you tell us a little bit some of the research that you do in both of those areas?
So the research in my lab is split into two different directions, like you said. One is ag-based. And it is in this that I investigate insect-plant interactions. The focus of my work is based on the fact that there's an evolutionary arms race going on between plants and insects. The insects feed on the plants, and the plant produces a toxin, and the insect defends against it, and then the plant produces another toxin. So one of the first chemicals that comes in contact with the plant is the saliva. So that's what I investigate on the ag side. How the saliva, what kind of chemicals are there that overcome the plant defenses. On the biomedical side, I use the common fruit fly, Drosophila melanogaster, as a model system to study neurodegenerative diseases. So,
Okay.
yeah, these are the two different aspects.
All right, that
related.
is so fascinating.
Yeah.
And you have students, both undergraduate and graduate students.
Absolutely.
From an undergraduate student perspective, can you maybe talk about some of those opportunities to work in the lab
Yes.
setting with you?
So I've been fortunate to have many great undergrad students who have worked so far in my lab, and currently I believe I have about 5 undergrad students working on different projects. Some of them work on insect-plant interactions, but there are others who work on developing a model for spinocerebellar ataxia type 1, which is a very dangerous neurodegenerative disease that is found in humans. And we use the fly as a model to study the pathway and mechanisms that cause that particular disease. So it is fun to work with undergrads because they come as a blank slate. And sometimes some of the naive questions that they ask forces me to rethink the way I should be doing research.
Yeah.
And it's always refreshing to work with these
awesome.
young kids.
And we're getting close on time, but you also serve as the graduate coordinator
Absolutely.
in this program, and we have an accelerated program for students. But what words of advice might you give to someone considering graduate school?
I would say that if they are considering graduate school, they should start preparing for that in advance. Make sure that they get in touch with professors and get some research under their belt. That's very, very critical because grad school is all about research work.
Yeah.
And identify the professors that you want to work with and make sure that you're passionate about doing what you're doing, because the next 4 or 5 years of your life you're going to spend doing that.
Absolutely. All right. Well, quickly, one of the favorite questions I like to ask folks is, where is your favorite place on campus and why?
I would say that is the Old Main. I like the chapel over there, and I don't know, it gives a different feel to the university. It's a nice teaching space too.
Well, thank you so much for spending a little bit of time with us this morning.
Absolutely.
That's going to do it. This episode of Influence. We'll see you next time.